All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Chopping It Up with P. Scott. I'm Prescott Kelly. Today is Saturday, November 25th. Hope you guys had a great and safe Thanksgiving and long weekend. Hope you guys all had a long weekend. Nobody wants to work Thursday and then have to work or have Thursday off, and then work Friday and then have the weekend off. Ain't nobody want to do that. So make sure you follow the podcast on Spotify. Smash those 5-star reviews. I have Chris Fisher of the Church of Hot Sauce with me. How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Even had leftovers from Thanksgiving, so I'm stuffed and ready to talk about some sports ball.
What did you do with your leftovers, though?
Honestly, just plated it up like normal. I didn't do anything special with it. We got a lot of leftover turkey, so maybe tomorrow I'll make some turkey chili or something to go along with watching football on Sunday.
I like that turkey chili. I like turkey chili. A lot of people want to slam on turkey chili, but I think that it's good.
Hey, it's a lean meat. Nothing wrong with that.
I used today I made a sandwich that might be like my new all-time favorite. I used like a cranberry jalapeno sauce with like a peppercorn gourmets and actual jalapenos on it as well. It was fire. Like I have the recipe written down somewhere, but it was the best leftover turkey sandwich I've ever had in my entire life.
Man, sounds bomb as hell right there.
Absolutely. So you as a Chargers fan, I want to kind of get your perspective on things because everybody's calling for Brandon Staley's head. And there's part of me that like I get it, but I also feel as fans we get into this realm of we think that we know more than we actually do. What's your perspective of Brandon Staley? Should he be fired? Are you okay with him getting another year? The process of the team? What's kind of how you're viewing the Chargers as a whole?
Well, let's go with what you said. Everybody's calling for him to get fired, and when you say everybody, bro, it's everybody. We're talking Colin Coward. We're talking Joy Taylor. We're talking Howie Long's kid. Like
And
literally
they're all
everybody.
LA people too.
Absolutely. So it's like I I I'm always a big person for like giving somebody a shot, and like maybe that's just because I'm a Chargers fan and I just hang on to hope. And I like, but
You're talking to a Bills fan, my guy.
right, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So it's like I just what finally did it for me was the press conference after the game. And I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but
Not the entirety of it, but yeah.
Staley was asked, he was, oh, well, what do you have to say to the fans? Well, I'm not here to answer the fans. I don't know who the hell else you're here to answer to besides the fans. So, and you want to take full responsibility for the loss. You want to, our defense is playing good. We're ranked 29th in defense, bro. It's and
Which
with
is
the
wild.
amount of
Didn't Khalil Mack like have 1,900 sacks in one game?
yeah, he had 6 sacks against the Raiders. Yeah, uh, which like and I still believe I think he's still our leading sack guy right now, especially with Joey Bosa going down in this last game. But it's like I when you're talking about being 29th in the league in defense, it's it's more than just not remembering the fundamentals or people not remembering their assignments or what have you. We're good up front. We're good on the trenches, and we're at least semi decent out on the edges. The biggest thing, and you can watch it. It's almost 50% of the plays where it's over like a 10-yard gain. It's the secondary. The coverage is either blown or somebody has some kind of penalty that doesn't make sense, like Asante Samuel this last game on that 3rd and 24 against Green Bay. It made zero sense.
So
So
do you think it's more of like their defensive coordinator than Brandon Staley then?
no,
Because from what I
Brandon
understand, he's supposed to be the offensive like guru, and he was the nerd who just like kind of like lucked in. Because and I could be wrong because I'm not a huge Chargers fan, but I thought he was like an analytics guy and did blogging, and then next thing we know, he's a head coach.
yeah, he's for sure an analytics guy. I mean, next to like Dan Campbell, I'm pretty sure him and Dan Campbell are pretty the most like analytic coaches out there. But he's he played college ball at some D3 school or something like that, and played quarterback. So he has an offensive mind as far as that realm goes. So it's supposed to be easier to, that ability to more easily coach Herbert in that sense, or show him defensive schemes, be able to identify them and all that jazz. But he's supposed to be the defensive guy. That's what he's been in the short term that he was in the NFL as far as like defensive guy. I think it was like 4 or 5 years, so not very long. But he's supposed to be the defensive guy, and he's the one who's running all the defensive schemes. So if it's not working, like, it's on him. And it's at this point, the Chargers have, at least the last 4 coaches have fallen into this thing of like hiring somebody that hasn't had a head coaching opportunity. Oh, we're going to get this guy that's going to be the next big thing, and we're going to give him a shot instead of picking somebody that's tried and true and at least had some kind of form of success in other places. And we gave it a shot. I was on this. I was the last to jump off the Staley ship, but yeah, I 100% believe we should fire him. The big question is on that, though, is do you do it mid-season or do you wait?
That one's always tough for me. I always think it's weird too when there's like whispers and murmurs, and like the media will say this guy needs to get fired, and then it goes on for a month and a half, and then one day the GM is like, yeah, no, we'll go ahead and get rid of him now. But you're right, like during mid-season, is it the time to do it? I don't feel. Also, okay, before we move on, like, so one, because you were talking about how the Chargers always want to get like a head coach that doesn't have any experience. Does that seem like it's just like a cheap factor from their owner? And they're like, yeah, well, we don't want to pay them a whole lot of money, so we'll give it a try, because the Chargers have been talented for 25 years now. It's what it feels like. There's always the roster, but are they skimping on the coach because that isn't salary cap driven by that decision, or like what's kind of like where do you win on that?
I don't know. I mean, like, you look at McCoy. He was the coach for the Broncos when Manning was there, so there was some success there. But that was obviously because of Manning and not because of McCoy. And then the whole subject matter of the Spanos is not wanting to cash out a bunch of money. It's like, we pay our players, so that, as far as like that mentality, anybody that says that, that's not there. But you're absolutely right. The coach is out of pocket. That's not off of the
that's not cap driven. Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, could that be the situation? It's very well possible. And if that is the case, there's a little rumor, and I'm sure you've heard it because of the division that you're in, where the Patriots are going to be parting ways with Bill Belichick. And that's been a huge rumor that I've heard from many different sources that I have of my own, and stuff that's in the media, where that's a possibility. I don't hate it, but the interesting side of that is I don't want him as our GM. But because our GM has failed the last 4 head coaching hirings, whether that has to do with the amount of money the Spanos wants to pay for the head coaches or what have you, Coupon Tom Telesco is, I believe he's gone at the end of the season as well, regardless.
Oh, so you think both those guys are getting chopped?
I don't see how we would hold on to Telesco. I really don't at this point. You've had 4 opportunities to do head coaching hirings. None of them have worked out exponentially. We made it to the playoffs once out of those 4 coaches.
God, even that one time was a detrimental failure.
Yeah, we got our butts beat by the Ravens. It was
because they were up like.
I guess we went to the playoffs
Jaguars and then blew that one.
Yeah, Jacksonville, that game came down to defense. As soon as halftime was over, it was like our defense didn't know where they were at. Asante Samuel had 3 interceptions in the first half. First time that's ever been done. It was, I've got a signed Samuel jersey in hanging in my closet. Love that kid. But as soon as the third quarter came around, they just forgot where they were at, and the Jaguars were able to come back and spank us in one of the best. I hate to say it, one of the best comebacks in NFL history. Yada yada.
Yeah. It can. You can. Some people will say that might be hyperbolic, but in all reality, it's what they were down by 20-ish points going into. Yeah, something like that. So, I think the Buffalo Houston game from like the early 90s is largely regarded as the best, or like the biggest comeback ever.
Mm.
And you have like the Patriots versus the Falcons in the Super Bowl because the stakes were higher. Like those things happen, but it's going to be up in that conversation. And when I look at, I almost said San Diego again. I'm never going to like fully embrace them being in Los Angeles. But I think it's a culmination of everything. I think we like to put the head coach as a scapegoat, but it also comes down to, especially that playoff loss. Let's just say the players still have to do their job, but if you're not putting in the best position to succeed, then that is on you as the head coach. I just don't know if the Chargers are in this realm of. I also give them. I don't want to say I give them a pass because they're too talented to be as bad as they've been for the past, especially since they got Justin Herbert. They've been too talented to not be better, but that division is ran by Kansas City. And if you don't win your division, making the playoffs is going to be so damn difficult because of like just how good the entire AFC is, though. So getting rid of him, my question has always been, if you want to get rid of a coach, I'm okay with fans being that over the top about it. But who the hell are you going to get who's better? He's a 500 head coach, and that's pretty good.
It's not the worst in the league. Yeah.
It's not the worst in the league. So who are you trying to go? But you mentioned Bill Belichick about going to because I've seen that as well, that there's been like trade proposals like we saw with Sean Payton because they still have the rights to him. Do you see that actually happening? Because I could in a way, but I think that especially in today's NFL, defensive coaches are going to they have a shorter leash because the offense is so offensively driven now, and you're Bill Belichick, so you're going to have that leash because you've got the 6 rings to rule them all to kind of back the resume. I just don't know if him in that environment is going to work and what LA is willing to give up to get him.
Yeah, if it's a later round pick, I don't see us having a problem with that. If it's like maybe a third round or lower pick, then I could see it. I could see it happening. When you get into the giving up a second round pick or first round pick or multiples thereof to try to make that situation happen, that's where it starts to get iffy. There's also rumors that Jim Harbaugh might be available, and I don't know if you knew this, but probably the best quarterback room of all time was Jim Harbaugh, Drew Brees, Philip Rivers, and who was that Canadian football player that he played for? Doug Flutie, exactly. He played for the Bills. That possibly the greatest quarterback room of all time. And to have a former Charger come in there, that'd be interesting as well. But yeah, as far as giving up draft capital for it, that's a tough one.
Do you have to remember what the draft capital was that was given up from Denver to get Sean Payton?
I believe it was either a first and a fourth or a first and a fifth.
See, and that's kind of where trading for coaches doesn't happen very often. So it's I understand the reason why you want to do it, but again, because I thought that Brandon Staley was the offensive guy, but if he's a defensive guy and they're struggling that much, does bringing in another defensive-minded coach make that much sense? And on top of that is because of the way I don't agree with everything and all the narratives that people throw out there, but when it does come to who's the most important person in the organization, it's the quarterback, one, and you got to be good friends with your head coach. And I don't think that Justin Herbert and Bill Belichick are going to be best friends. That's
to be fair, I don't think Bill Belichick and Tom Brady were best of friends either. So I mean, like
No,
there's
but they're different though, and so you bring up an interesting point when you say that because I've always kind of felt this way that, and we'll move off topic in a moment, but when I hear people say that it's like the Patriot culture, it's the Patriot way,
Hmm.
I don't. I feel like that's a really lazy way of just saying. So Belichick got to he got to New England. He had Bledsoe, but what he did is he had Brady, who was like willing to be coached the way that Brady wanted to be coached as well. If that dynamic doesn't happen, you don't start winning. You don't start to get people who have that are willing to take less money to go and play there because you know you're going to win. Because that's always been the story, right? If you go to New England, like in the mid 2000s, not the early 2000s, because we didn't know what that dynasty was going to be, but in the mid 2000s, it was like you're going to hate playing here, but you know you're going to win.
mm,
And you need the certain players who can adjust to that, which is where I don't think that in like today's NFL that's going to be a recipe that you can culminate, especially in Los Angeles and not Massachusetts.
well, and that's one of the interesting aspects where I might want to give that Belichick aspect a try is because he's very good at making nobody somebody's as far
Yeah.
as defensive schemes go. So with how many somebodies we have on the team right now, it'd be very interesting to see if he could make that work. Um, Taylor in the chat said we never should have fired Marty Schottenheimer, and he's not wrong. We should have fired Schottenheimer, and we should have kept Drew Brees. That's okay. We probably have a Lombardi by
That,
now.
that one's always tough because that always comes back to the hindsight of uh, the Drew Brees thing. We didn't know that Drew Brees was going to be what Drew Brees was, but when you look at his career in its entirety, it does look like it's really bad to let him go. But in the moment, nobody thought he was going to be. Yeah, so it's always
You're throwing elbow. I mean, especially back then where they didn't have the procedures that they have now, and how fast people can come back from injuries and all that jazz. Yeah,
yeah.
if given the circumstances, I probably would have made the same call. But yeah, definitely hindsight's 2020.
I'm also glad that he didn't go to Miami because God, like could you imagine the Bills were already complete dog shit for years. It was just Brady. Could you imagine if Brady and Breeze were there? But hey, they would have got multiple top 7 picks because they would have lost to both of those teams every year in the division.
I mean, it would have made for some really good games. I mean, that to say the least. But yeah, who knows what history.
Miami and New England finally, but not for Buffalo. We got dog walked everywhere. If we had both those QBs in the division. But before we move on, so you have a new page, right? The Church of Hot Sauces. I want you to go and give a plug for that before we go ahead and move on to anything else.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Church of Hot Sauce. I was a part of a program called Friday Night Fire. I felt it was time for me to branch off and do my own spice show, so came out with Church of Hot Sauce. I've been an ordained minister for 15 years, so I thought I'd play off of that. And it's kind of like going to church for spice. So I review hot sauces. I do challenges on there. Haven't had any guests yet, but there'll be guests to come. But yeah, it's just having fun with. Yeah, you're more than welcome to come on there, man. We'll talk about that turkey sandwich. But yeah, man, it's just fun. It's on Sundays. It'll ramp up a lot more. Maybe it'll extend to full hour show after football season's over. Yeah, it's just for fun and just talking about sauces, man.
Well, because I know between you and me and Chili Dean, I've tried to be what I need to do is try to we need to collaborate and know what sauce or like 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and we do a live stream, and it's like a hot wings or hot ones challenge basically, and everybody can see what we're doing because I love hot sauce. I did a hot wing challenge 2 years ago, and it was the most excruciating thing I've ever done in my entire life, but it was so much fun.
I did. I belong to a group called Cap Crew, and I did a challenge. It's a private group, so I don't have the ability to share the video, but I had to roll some dice, and depending on the number on the die, I had to do a certain amount of hot sauce shots, and I had my hottest lineup going over here, and I did 12 ounces of hot sauce in one sitting, and then I was like, oh, I
12,
didn't. I did
12 ounces?
12 ounces, so over 2 bottles of hot sauce just straight. And then I thought, oh, I didn't cry, so I did something that's called tincture, and I did a couple full robbies of that, which is just concentrated capsaicin. Uh, let's just say at the end of the night, I was hugging a frozen bag of fries to get to sleep. The cramps were that bad. So
Bro,
yeah, so that's fun.
that's wild.
That group definitely takes it to the extreme. That's honestly like there's a lot of people on there that aren't like mainstream as far as like competing in like League of Fire events and stuff like that. But that's where the big dogs play, bro. Like that's I'm on the lower end of the totem pole when it comes to the people that are in that group. That can take.
I've always wondered when it comes to the totem pole, is the saying is on the low rung of the totem pole, but isn't that supposed to be the best part of the totem pole? I get confused. Like what is it though?
I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I guess I never
Like
thought
you live
about
in
it.
Alaska, dog. Like you should know this, not me.
Right? There's more totem poles in Alaska than there are in Georgia. That's for darn sure. For sure.
You ain't wrong on that one. So before we move on to something that's actually on the scroll, because that kind of helps me stay on pace, the Lions got beat, and now everyone's jumping ship. When I saw just even 72 hours ago, right before that game happened, that they're the number two team ish in the NFC, right? It's usually Philly, San Francisco. You sprinkle Dallas in there sometimes, you sprinkle Detroit in there, but then it becomes they're the worst 8-win team of all time. And I'm like, well, the Arizona Cardinals were 11-0 a few years ago. I think that people forget about that. I've always thought that Detroit, it took me a little bit longer to get on the Detroit bandwagon than most because people like once they started winning last year, they're like the Lions are going to be good next year. But the Jets have always been statistically like that's the way that they've always operated as well, where at the end of the year, it's well, Sam Darnold figured it out. Nope, no, he didn't. Like you can have good runs, and Detroit wasn't necessarily that for me, but I never really believed in Dan Campbell. But I know that they're good. Like, okay, I'm tired. I'm not going to go back to the same old Lions thing because I know that they're good now. But I am getting tired of saying just from game to game, and sometimes it's day to day, people saying the Lions are the second best team in the conference to they're the worst 8-win team ever. I just think that they're good, and good is better than what they've ever been.
100%. So there's something to play on that as far as if they don't if it's been a pile of shit for a long time and then they're at least middle of the pack, they're gonna look like a shining turd. So, but but if you look at the team in their entirety, their secondary is great. Their linebacker group is great. You got Hutchinson. He's got like more picks than anybody in their first 2 years in the NFL. So their trenches are good. They're running games. Gibbs, they're set up, man. Amon-Ra St. Brown, like they've got playmakers across the board, and good for Goff for showing that he wasn't just a shining light in LA either. He's a good quarterback. He's at least a top 15 quarterback. So
Well, see, so Goff is the one that's always been the weird one for me because when I look at him play, I go, this dude can start, but it goes back to the extremes that we saw. Remember the exact what I just used as Detroit as an embodiment overall is the same thing you can do with Jared Goff. He gets drafted number 1, number 2 overall. This guy's trash. Then they make it to a Super Bowl. Oh, well, now you got to pay him because the Rams went to a Super Bowl and he's a starting quarterback. That means he's good. And
right.
then they're doo-doo butter. And then he gets dealt to Detroit. And Stafford walks in and immediately his first year, they win the Super Bowl. And the narrative goes back to he's trash. And coming up into this past game, it was Goff's figured it out, and we're going right back to he's trash again. I just feel like he's one of those dudes where if everything's perfect, you can still win with him. But I have never once thought that you can win because of him. Like that list is like Mahomes, and it stops there. The reason why you win.
And well, let's throw this statistic out there because maybe people are forgetting about this. Goff has played Mahomes twice in his career. One was that I think it was the Thursday night game of the century. That was like, it was like almost an 85 point game or 86 point game.
It was like 55 to 51 or something stupid.
It was ridiculous. Goff beat him in that game, and then first game of the season they took out the Chiefs. So here
that one, okay.
That one's not as impressive. We'll say that, but he's still 2-0 against Mahomes. So yes. I think what you're saying though, as far as it's not just him that's making that circumstance happen. It's definitely what's around him that's making him look good in those moments of opportunity. So
yeah, that's largely what I'm saying. But that isn't even really a knock on Goff. I've always said this, and a lot of people don't want to listen to it, but there's always 3 or 4 great teams every year. There's 3 or 4 that are absolute just dog, and then there's 22 to 25 who are basically 500. You get a couple bounces, and you're good that year, and then you don't, and you're bad. And that's what you could. My whole point is like that's how you can just equate quarterback play. There's 3 or 4 that we know are great, 3 or 4 that we know are trash, and then everyone else is like if you just recycle them in different teams, you're going to get the same person basically. And I feel like that's what Goff is.
Yeah, and us, I mean, there's 6 games left to play. Is for the Lions through the rest of the season, and if they win half of them, they're going to go to the playoffs, undoubtedly. So yeah. We'll see what happens. I don't think they'll end up with home field advantage. Maybe they will.
Detroit.
Yeah. I guess they absolutely will because the rest of that division is garbage. But
well, yeah, because the division right now I think is pretty. It should be. Now the weird thing too is like we're only essentially halfway through the season. We're a little bit more than halfway through, so there is a chance they could still lose it. I don't see it happening. But Green Bay is kind of slowly taking their way up. But Taylor says, give it to Gibbs. Why are these teams not showing love to the rookie running backs with the Bijan? I like Bijan, but I do. The Falcons are failing him more than anything else. It's just the Falcons being the Falcons. Same thing with
they drafted. I mean, they're just not utilizing their talent in the right way.
If you're the Falcons, you have to do one of 2 things: is you have to trade Kyle Pitts and trade Bijan Robinson both in the offseason and get some like high draft capital to go get a quarterback, or you just got to be like, yo, we got to just tank the rest of the season. Desmond Ridder ain't it. Tyler Heineke ain't it. We just got to let it go because it's a deep draft class. But the thing is, they're making both of those studs look like they're just less than
draft capital are you going to get back? Yeah, exactly. What draft capital are you going to get back with how you're looking, how they can perform?
Well, the thing that the only way I think that it could work now is because they're both so young where they don't have a crazy bonkers contract attached to their names. They're still on rookie salaries. So you might still be able to get pretty good compensation because I've always thought the draft is largely a crapshoot. You have no idea what you're going to get. So I'm okay with if you don't think you have enough right now, and the NFC South isn't good anyways. Like we can all just.
I wish the Chargers were the NFC South. Oh my God. They were in the NFC South.
They might still only get to 9-8, but they're going to put up infinity billion points while they're doing it. Not against New Orleans, but
I wouldn't mind. I'd trade a first rounder for Pitts and Justin Herbert having that tool on his arsenal, I wouldn't mind that at all.
See, and that's yeah, and I agree with that. Like, so the first round, that's the whole thing is like whenever you're giving up, Russell Wilson was traded for 3 first rounders, wasn't he? Or like 2 and a third and a fifth, something stupid. And the Broncos have been better this year than they were last year. I think that most of us thought that Denver would be good last year, and they weren't because he no, I don't even have words to describe how good he was.
Everybody wanted to unpack it, but yeah.
And but if you put Kyle Pitts with Justin Herbert with how much they sling it, yeah, they're gonna put more points and win one more game. I'll give you
that. Right. I'll take a one game differential. I'll take that.
Yeah, as long as Staley's a coach, I'm still gonna win 9 games every damn year. But all right, so Taylor had said Josh Dobbs doesn't even have eyebrows. I don't know where we got to Josh Dobbs on that one, but that was shame. The guy with no eyebrows.
He has them. They're just super fake. Did you know that guy had a job at NASA and was like, I'm gonna go play football?
Well, I didn't know that he had a job at NASA, but I thought he went to school for astrophysics. I don't know the entire story on that.
That's like, and you know what? I swear that's our generation's Fitzmagic. Both of them smart.
Oh my God, he totally is.
And they've been on like every single team in the league.
Well, I feel like Gardner Minshew is like, when I do word association with like playing for everybody that is a fan favorite, Gardner Minshew has been a fan favorite for a couple years now, and Josh Dobbs is, kind of the new flavor of the month if we were doing Baskin Robbins status. And I feel like he could still be good, but as far as when we do word association with backup quarterbacks who we love, it's Fitzpatrick and then Minshew and then Dobbs right below it. But he's cranking up the power rankings are in his favor though. All right, so moving on. Did you want to go ahead and move to? So we got a couple different things on here. We got Bill Belichick. We kind of meshed those into the Chargers. You want to talk the Bengals?
Oh man,
it's already here.
Well, man, it's the second time this year that something in the NFL has happened, and Taylor can attest to this. Where, for instance, the Bijan situation, where either it's somebody's on the injury report or they're not, or there's some kind of bubble to where there's a team's keeping it.
Oh, it's not being disclosed.
So that's interesting. I think the Bengals had put a picture up on their Instagram, I believe, where Burrow was wearing some kind of hand brace, and then they deleted it before the game, which that's interesting.
So that I didn't know. I know they posted it and then deleted it. That's some sketchy.
So yeah, what's going on there? Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm just curious. I just want some kind of explanation, even if it's a bunch of baloney. Like, I'm just curious on what their explanation is on that.
Because if you never post that, the NFL isn't going to like investigate. Because that's what I saw too, is that the NFL is investigating them not being being truthful with their injury report. If you never post that, this doesn't even happen.
Well, and even like the guy from Barstool, Jeff Portnoy, he's got a lawsuit going on against the NFL right now because he thinks they should pay back all those bets from that game. Which,
what? Portnoy's doing that?
Oh yeah,
I have mixed emotions about that dude.
Hey, smart businessman. I'd work.
Did he buy his business back for $1?
Yeah. After selling it for millions, that's fantastic, man. What a great scenario and a great story, man. But
just get better pizza. Find better pizza.
I love those reviews. It's the Bengals right now, man. Like without Burrow, they like. Can you name their backup quarterback? Because I can't.
Boomer Esiason still.
Oh, okay.
Right? No. I think it's Boomer Esiason Jr.
don't
I have
even
no
know that
idea. I have
person
no
exists
clue who the hell
anymore.
they're.
Yeah, so
Isn't it, Browning? Isn't the last name Browning? I think.
I don't know.
But I don't know. It's like, so to me, the window has officially shut on the Bengals. I always hate being the hyperbolic guy, but what they're running into is that they outkicked their coverage and they outdrafted. Jamar Chase is going to get $30 million a year when he's able to get it. You can't keep him and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. You're just not, and then pay Joe Burrow $50 million. You're just not going to be able to.
It doesn't
So
work.
with him getting these injuries and these severe, they're like not career, they're season-ending injuries every time that they happen. Like Cincinnati is, if they don't, this was their time. Had he not gotten hurt, they still would have had like a 2-year window, I believe, because of all those contracts that were going to start playing into it. But because this happened now, I think they're done. Like they'll be good again because Burrow's always good, but I just don't see it happening anymore.
I don't see them overtaking the throne of the Ravens, more or less running that division. So
That division's stupid, man.
the Steelers not outgaining any of their opponents through this many games, and they have 6 wins. That is just insane to me.
It's so dumb. It doesn't make any sense.
The first time in NFL history, man. It bound to happen sometime. And with Tomlin's a genius as far as coaching goes. So but what was the stat line I saw? Trent Richardson. That was the quarterback for the Colts, right?
Anthony Richardson. Yeah.
So he has more touchdown passes
and Kenny Pickett,
and he stopped playing October 8th.
That I love. Okay, so because I'm an AFC East fan as well, or my team that I'm a fan of is in the AFC East. I saw another stat that was just as beautiful as that. Is that Deron Bland, the cornerback for the Cowboys, has as many touchdowns as Patriot wide receivers this year, and he plays corner. I love it. It's so fantastic.
I tell you what, I've got the Cowboys defense in my fantasy league, and I love that every week, bro. It's like I can almost depend on that 6 points coming in.
You've been eating.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So with the Bengals and like because I'm with you. I think, especially for this season, and it's not even just the division itself. The division itself is obviously completely bonkers. Just everybody's above 500 still, I think. And you're just, if you don't win the division, good luck getting in. So, but going forward though, do you think the Bengals are, what's the pivot move for them?
No, I think you're exactly right. You especially those 4 top players on offense. You had an opportunity with rookie contracts, and that's what the game of the NFL is, more or less. Before you get onto the field, is the game of how can we get talent in there, get them in fast, and get them on rookie contracts, and draft well. And they've been doing that, but at this point, the time is up. You're going to have to, one of those 4, and maybe even 2 of those 4 have to go. So if you want to,
I made this argument last year and I got laughed at. And I told people, you have to either make a decision on which wide receiver are you going to trade immediately. Is it going to be Jamar Chase, or is it going to be T. Higgins? Because Jamar Chase is going to cost you $30 million a year. T. Higgins will not. And people are like, you don't trade either one of them. Like, well, you can look short term if you want to, dog, but this is what's going to happen.
I think you might be able to keep 3 of them, but if you keep 3 out of the 4, I would say Boyd and Higgins are gone. But if you keep 3 out of the 4 instead of keeping 2 out of the 4, then you have an opportunity to maybe move the cash around, pick up some pieces during the off season, maybe draft right, and still kind of be a contender or make a shot at running towards the Ravens and getting that division. But if you keep 3 out of 4, your cap's used up. So you're going to have to. I'm going to use Tom Telesco as an example. You're going to have to coupon Tom it, and not a lot of people can do that. So I don't see that happening because who wants to live in Cincinnati? No offense, Ohio, but
No, complete offense to Ohio. I live in Alaska. I can talk to whatever state I want to, man.
but for real, man, it's like I just don't see it happen. And the fact that they've been able to hold on to Mixon is beyond me. And that might not happen because he's still balling. That dude's still a lead back in the NFL. So he might want an extension because of this. The running backs want more money and stuff this offseason. See what happens with that. But again, depending on what you do with those wide receivers, with already paying Joe Burrow that much money, your money's used up. You can't be writing checks you can't cash. So I don't know what they'll do.
Well, the one thing I think that we all need to kind of accept the fact that the NFL salary cap isn't a real thing, because I remember the Steelers a couple of years ago and the Saints a few years back. They were both between $45 and $70 million over the cap. It doesn't exist. You can rearrange contracts, you can defer money out, you can restructure, whatever you want to do. And they'll find a way if they really, really want to, but you got to be creative with your books if that's the route that you want to go. And so Taylor says Higgins will cost about 26, most likely. But I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about two guys, most people consider T. Higgins to be a number one talent, but he's behind Jamar Chase. So why would you have two number one wide receivers and pay them both combined $56 million a year and then $50 million going to Burrow? That's
$106 million going to just
$110 million with 3 players, and you have 50 other roster spots between. Like, it doesn't make any sense at that point in time. So that's my point is Jamar Chase is the higher profile guy. You should trade him because you're going to get more for him than you will T. Higgins. So if I can get similar number one production from Higgins as number one and move on from Chase and get more draft capital back, that's the only way I see that Cincinnati might be able to at least keep themselves relevant. But to me, this is still Baltimore's division. I said it before the season this year and before last year. And Baltimore is one of those teams where they know what they are and what they're trying to do. They don't have to spend. They spent money ill-advised on OBJ this year.
Which hasn't not worked out.
Because he's still the threat. So it still helps that way. But what they've realized is, like, we don't need to pay. We don't need Devontae Adams. We can just use a tight end, get a bunch of running backs, and then just use the run game. And then Lamar Jackson can throw open guys and have better windows because that RPO is going to be stupid. So they're not wasting money on those other skill position guys when they've already wasted the money on Lamar.
Absolutely. And that might get interesting. But see, and that's, I don't know how long Andrews is going to be out.
He's done for the year, I believe.
See, and that's what makes that Joe Burrow injury that much. I'm not going to say funnier, but funnier.
Pittsburgh is going to be 74th in offense and still make the goddamn playoffs.
Well, because if you had Joe Burrow healthy, we'll see what happens. Well, not gonna lie, I'm stoked that they won't have that tool to use against us this Sunday night.
That's fair.
That would have been the Bengals' perfect opportunity to kind of move in there and try to take over the division in that aspect, at least for this year. But with Burrow out, like you said, that's not going to happen for sure. So And I just don't see this. The Steelers. I don't know about the Steelers. The Browns are kind of interesting, but they're still the Browns, and they don't have their lead quarterback. So that's bruiser ball, and bruiser ball only works so much of the time. So
Well, this is why that might actually work though, is because we get so enamored with looking at the high flying offenses, right? You've got to have it's a quarterback driven league, it's an offensive league. But we're getting to the point now where running the ball, playing defense matters because this weather is this weather. Yep, you put up the stats early, and then Cleveland, because Cleveland's got a top 3 defense and like a top running game, even without Nick Chubb, which is absurd. But they're still doing that. Now, I'm not saying you still need elite quarterback play to win you certain games, which the Browns don't have with Deshaun Watson or not, right? Like that, he wasn't playing at that level. But they could still win that division, host a home game, and maybe, just maybe, AFC Championship game, which is stupid to say out loud. With me, I heard those words come out of my mouth, and I'm already mad at it. But it could happen, though.
If they get to that point, then they deserve to be there. That's all I'm going to say. That would be absolutely ridiculous.
Well, the AFC is just such a crapshoot, man. It really is, and we've seen that. Oh, and Taylor, time back in with Trent Dilfer. Okay, so here's the deal. Anytime that somebody throws out Trent Dilfer, I'm like, we cannot use the outlier as, the reason why we can do this. I love him because he's been interactive and has been right up in here this entire time. But it's the same thing. Like people saying, well, why don't you just draft a quarterback in the 6th round because Tom Brady did it? That isn't. We can't do that.
Oh, he's going to give you more examples.
He's giving me more examples, yeah. But he's really throwing him in there. But Foles wasn't like a bad, but he wasn't a 6th rounder. Hostetler, I have no idea where Hostetler was even drafted. But he did, like, he's coming through like he's just going rapid fire gauntlet status.
That division will be interesting, and honestly, I mean, Miami's doing pretty hot in the AFC, so it's Miami, it's Baltimore, and it's the Chiefs, and that's.
Do you think the Dolphins are frauds? I know that I think the Bills are. Like, nobody wants to believe me, but the Bills are frauds. Do you think the Dolphins are? Because I have mixed emotions.
I don't know if they're not frauds in the sense that they're not outright winners as far as going into the game. Oh, that they're definitely going to win that game, but they can keep themselves in every game, which not a lot of teams can say that. So having Tyreek Hill and having Waddle on both sides going deep. I hate to say this, Herbert's still better at quarterback than Tua. I don't care what anybody says. I swear to God, go look up the stats.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. It was the presentation. It was the way that that gift was wrapped in more than anything else.
The Herbert and Tua, if you look at their season side by side, Tua has more interceptions. They have almost the same amount of yards thrown. Okay. Completion percentage, all that jazz. But Herbert has what tools? He essentially has Keenan Allen, and you've got this amazing two backs, 3 great wide receivers. We got multiple sick wide receivers, are injured, and it's still almost the exact same number. So what's more impressive? They're talking about Herbert being non-clutch, but all of a sudden Tua is like a gift from God. I feel like the Herbert campaign is a lot more impressive because of that, because of the stuff that's been going on, as opposed to you had literally everything set up for you as far as Tua goes.
Well, what's so funny is that when we talk about these quarterbacks, and we touched on this a little bit when it came to the Lions, as far as like overreaction, because there was an entire slogan of tank for Tua. Right? And then he was getting benched all the time because to come back full circle again, when we talk about who's the better coaching candidate, Brian Flores, defensive guy. I'm going to bench him and then put in Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was playing with like it was baseball. Tua can be my starter. Fitzpatrick is my closer. That doesn't do anybody any good. And it just for me, we got to slow down a little bit. I think you're right. When it comes to true arm talent and quarterback play, I think that Herbert's better than Tua as well. But when you're put in certain positions and put in positions where you're basically set up to fail, your NFL career is completely derailed. It should be, at least that's what we've seen. But Tua somehow is able to kind of turn it around. But I'm with you. I think that Herbert's the better quarterback of the two, just based on talent alone.
I'm also a big U of O fan, so that plays into that little bit of bias as well.
At least you're honest about it, though. I appreciate it. Can I ask you a question real quick, though?
Yeah.
What do you, just going off the cuff, whose career do you think is going to be more wasted from the quarterback perspective? Herbert versus Phillip Rivers, and positional player Keenan Allen and LaDainian Tomlinson.
You're hurting my
because
heart.
I feel like they've wasted so many damn careers there.
Okay, so let's talk about it real quick. 2010, we had the top offense and the top defense,
and didn't make the playoffs.
Didn't even make the playoffs. It's ridiculous.
But that was Schottenheimer, right? That was Schottenheimer.
No, Schottenheimer was in the Drew Brees era. So that was I can't remember who the coach was back then. Maybe Taylor will know, but I wouldn't say it was wasted. At least I don't think Keenan Allen's career is wasted. He just reached the 10,000 mark.
North Turner, he did. He came through in the clutch. Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate it, bud.
Look at every single one of the stat lines. Keenan Allen's a top 5 receiver in the league, in literally every single category.
You mean of all time or like currently? Like he's
currently playing. He's a top 5 in every.
I agree.
He'll have a gold jacket someday. That there's no doubt in my mind. Especially at this point.
100%.
But it hurt my heart not to have Phillip win a ring. And honestly, I hated seeing him play in a Colts uniform. But like when the Brock Purdy situation happened last year, and come to find out the Niners had Phillip on speed dial just in case they made it past the NFC Championship game, it was like, I wouldn't mind seeing Phil win a ring for another team because at least he'd have a ring and that could shut up the Eli Manning fans and stuff like that. Because I detest that human being entirely.
Eli?
Oh, yeah, he's just a piece of garbage.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to play for that team. Yeah. Like Daddy told me not to play for this team, so I don't want to.
It is wild that it's only happened like 2 times that I can remember, and the fact that happened is wild to me.
I think that's how the whole system works. You don't get the other person is John Elway. I think, or he at least threatened to do that if another team picked him.
Yeah. It was Elway and Eli, but it's also like why doesn't anybody else do that?
Because I think that's a slap in the face to anybody else that's been drafted and gone through the process.
I think that Caleb Williams is kind of doing that indirectly now, though. Huh?
You say that again?
Oh, I think that like indirectly, I think Caleb Williams is doing that now.
I think Caleb Williams is not who he's cracked up to be. He's going to be a top pick, and I'm going to call it right now. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a bust in the NFL.
Hold on. We got breaking news. Caleb Williams is going to be a bust.
I don't think he's going to work in the NFL, man. He's the quote. Who did he lose to? Was
Utah?
Well, There was like 2 games ago. The quote after the game, the one where he was crying in his mom's arms right after the game
The
was over.
Washington State or something like that, I think.
So his quote was, "I just want to go home, watch, put on some Friends, and paint my fingernails." And that
Wait,
thought process,
he said he wanted to paint his fingernails?
yeah, and to each their own. If that's what you want to do, bro. I mean, get it.
No, because I didn't actually watch the interview, but I do remember, because that's the whole thing with me. Like I don't get consumed by this with my work schedule. Plus, I have an hour and a half commute every damn day. I don't get to be like sucked into the back and forth of all this stuff. I do remember seeing there was like a screenshot of him crying into his mom's arms after a loss, but I don't remember the paint your nails thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't. I think it was either like something that was. It wasn't said like on live TV. It was either said in the locker room or after the fact, or like before he went home. But yeah, that's what I. Yeah, I don't want to think. I just want to think about next week. I want to go home, put on some Friends, and paint my fingernails. And that,
hold on. Hold on. This is why I think that this is all contrived. Did he actually say that verbatim, or is that what was being like reported?
that's a direct quote, supposedly. And I haven't seen.
He said, "I want to put on Friends and paint my nails."
Like and I haven't seen anything that said contrary to that. Like his people didn't put out a statement going, "We never said that" or anything like that. So as far as I'm aware, that was a valid, true statement. He's two in his feels.
He's playing the system.
I don't think I. So you're telling me if you have an opportunity to win a Heisman Trophy the second year in a row, which I think only 3 people have done, you're telling me that I'm just going to start losing. I don't buy that. And
No, I don't buy that. I don't think he's losing on purpose because of that. I'll give you that one.
but as far as like lowering his draft capital so he doesn't go to just a dog team, I don't buy it, and that's why. But the feels thing is what makes me think he's not going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. There's something about like taking in like what's going on and like and having that spirit to like persevere and take it all in and then go past it. But I think he's two in his feels. I don't think if he goes to a team that doesn't have a decent line, and now you can say this for a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But if he goes to a dog team, he's probably not going to have a good O-line. And I think if he has a really, really crappy first 4 years, that guy's not going to come back from it. And that's why I think he's going to be a bust.
I have mixed emotions on because like you and I kind of spoke off camera where I said I don't watch a whole lot of college football. Like I don't have a team, so I watch the Bills and I watch obviously whoever they're playing against, and I have a better idea. And week to week, I get a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on. So I know that he's highly touted. I think that his draft stock to me isn't going to move much. But I understand what you're saying as far as like if that's what you're willing to do after a loss, what can I expect from you at the next level? So I understand that, but it's also these guys now are businessmen. They're not just collegiate athletes.
Absolutely.
So they are trying to protect their brand. They're trying to protect themselves. And all too often, if you're picking at the top of the draft, you're picking there for a reason. Like 95 times out of 100, there's a reason why you have the number 1 to number 5 pick in the NFL draft. And I think what he's doing is not necessarily throwing games, but doing things to maybe potentially sway certain trash organizations to stay away from him and then slide down a bit to get into a better position where we've seen this all the time is you go someplace that's trash and then you're booty juice and they go, well, you're not any good. Well, no, the organization's not any good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what he's trying to do is protect him. He'd rather take the bullet up front than try to take it at the next level where it's really going to cost him like millions upon millions, because that's where the real money is. He's making money here, and we all know that. But I think what he's doing is he's trying to protect himself now to be good for in the future later on. That's just the way that I'm reading it.
That makes sense.
I could be completely wrong too, because I have no idea who the hell this guy is. I've never talked to him.
Yeah, and the college football, look at these updates real quick. Yeah, Florida State might get beat by Florida, so the number 5 team might be beat by an unranked team right now. I love the rivalry week, which is the last week of regular college football season. It's happening right now.
Yeah,
because unranked teams will beat ranked teams, and it just messes up the entire top 25. But yeah, there is so much talent in this next draft class. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how it shakes down, especially with what happens in the college football playoffs and who goes from that, especially like Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and some of those guys.
Do you think that Bo Nix slides a lot because of his age?
Do I think he what because of his age?
Do you think that Bo Nix will slide because people are like, because he's older than most quarterbacks? Do you think he's going to slide down the draft? Because like, I know it's a Browns thing to do, but they drafted like 48-year-old Brandon Weeden in the first round. I think that what people are trying to do is they're trying to consistently get the 15-year starter, where if I'm the NFL, a 4-year starter is a 4-year starter. Yeah, he's not going to probably break a lot of these records because you're not starting as early as you are, what other quarterbacks have. But I don't really have a problem taking a 4-year starting quarterback and getting somebody who's a little bit older, because I think that Bo Nix will be good.
So far he's had 59 starts in CFB. It's the most of any quarterback in CFB history.
He almost had as many starts as Josh Allen in the NFL.
And I think where that comes into play, especially right now with where the NFL is at, is I wouldn't look realistically, especially some of these win now teams, I wouldn't look for a 15-year starter. You're telling me I could bring Bo Nix in that has experience, can probably get it done at this next level, and I can keep him on a rookie contract for 5 years if I draft him in the first round.
Yeah.
That means the next 5 years, we really got a shot. We can figure out the time after that once the next 5 years are up or what have you. But at least for the next 5 years, that's a pretty big window to get some stuff done. So
yeah, I'm with you on that. And while kind of piggybacking off of that, what are your thoughts on taking running backs early? Because I've always been of the proponent of, you're going to use them early, but not use them late. But you sign these huge contracts and their second contracts when you don't think you can actually lose them. I'd rather take a running back in the first round that I know that I'm actually going to use and pay them then, but just not pay them the second contract. That's the way that I've always kind of interpreted it.
It's okay. So if you're going to use him like the Falcons are using Bijan, you don't take.
They're not using him at all.
Because I think Bijan is the third highest paid running back, third or fourth highest paid running back because of how high of a draft pick he was. So if you're going to use him like that, no. But if you're going to use him like the Raiders used Josh Jacobs last year and run him, almost 50% of the plays as an every down back, yeah, I wouldn't mind drafting him and giving him that money early and seeing after where it is after the 5 year the 5th year option and all that jazz. But there's so many good running backs that are deep in the draft class. Now the Chargers haven't had good luck with that.
Which is stupid because they have one of the best ones and he's undrafted.
Right.
So stupid, man. That's what makes me so mad about this draft.
Was a top draft pick.
It makes any goddamn sense.
LT was a top draft pick. Joshua Kelly, who's probably one of my favorite football player human beings on the planet, a super down to earth guy. out of UCLA. He's worked himself up. Like he's not a bad back, but he's also not a bell cow, which is kind of more or less what you want as your second running back. So uh, yeah, we haven't had good luck with that. But yeah, as far as do I mind taking running backs early on? No, I don't mind at all, as long as if it's going to be a fully utilized back, and that's going to be your back number one for sure, without a doubt, because of the talent that they possess, then okay. But if it's not, then it's not worth it. You can at least wait until the third round for something like that.
No, I'm with you because I understand that that's usually the narrative that we run into is running backs are a dime a dozen. You can get running backs anywhere. Yeah, but you can't get all of these guys anywhere. But it's also that like the draft process in itself is just absurd because you know as well as I do, one, the people that we watch on TV who do this for a living are wrong all of the time. All the time. And the running back situation is a similar kind of thing. Austin Eckler goes undrafted, but has what 90 touchdowns in the past year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Is what it
Austin
feels like.
Eckler definitely a diamond. He is a dime a dozen, or not a dime a dozen. He's a diamond in the rough.
Not in the rough, yeah.
Um, uh, Colorado State, I think, is where he came from. Um, he was used, I believe, all 4 years there. So it's not like he didn't have some miles on his legs. But yeah, man, it's definitely. I start looking at the ones that they say like, oh, there's a problem with this guy. Whenever somebody says that there's a problem with somebody during their draft stock, I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna be good. This guy's gonna be good. When they're
Like
perfect, that's when I
Larry
think like,
Tunsil has the gas mask 18 seconds before getting drafted.
well, especially like first rounders and like quarterbacks, and they're like, oh, this guy's flawless. Oh, he's gonna be crap.
Yep.
He's just not gonna be good. But it, Aaron Hernandez.
I just saw that.
Um, Melvin Gordon was a stud, but then he got greedy, and where's he at now?
Well, he's not getting mad at Russell Wilson anymore. God, that photo was so iconic. All right. Well, before we move on to the other topic that we had posted up, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get into the Josh Giddey situation?
Um, Honestly, I can't wait for this next the conference championship games next weekend are gonna be dope for college football, because I think it's really gonna show us what's gonna be the. I mean, I'll probably already start to get a draft list together, but it's gonna be very interesting how that plays out, because some of these teams can get beat, and that might shake up a little bit of the college football playoffs. Like right now, if Florida, who is not ranked, beats out number 5, then that could definitely affect the, because I think it's 6 seeds this year instead of 4. For
Oh, did they change it this year? I thought it was still 4.
or maybe it's next year that it gets changed.
It might be. I have no idea.
But it's gonna be very, very interesting. I think Ohio State's out of the top 4, so if Florida loses, then that brings U of O up into that realm, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Plus, if U of O becomes the 4 and Georgia's the 1, if they play in Georgia, I'm going to go see that game for sure. I'm going to try to make that happen 100%.
Oh my god! Oh, that's right, because you're in Georgia now. Oh my god! Good luck. Good luck getting tickets though.
Yeah,
if that happens.
Yeah, we'll see if I can pull some strings or something.
What was the final score of the Michigan Ohio State game? Because I didn't watch it. I know going into the half, Michigan was up, I think, 4. Right? It was 14-10.
It was
Because I remember the Ohio State kicker making a field goal, but there was like a timeout, and then he shanked the next one, and then I turned the game off after that.
Oh my gosh, where's it at?
Taylor's trying to like dictate how we go.
24-31.
He's like,
Yeah.
speed it up, dog. I gotta go to bed.
Ohio State lost to Michigan.
No, I know that they lost, but so because they were ranked number.
So it was Ohio State was ranked number 2 and Michigan was ranked number 3. So Michigan,
yeah, I think if you take that L, then you have to move out of that top 4. I would imagine. But that's just, without having any like real college football knowledge. But so moving on to the next thing, because Taylor's got to go to bed soon, and we want to make sure we get to everything. So I messaged you about this earlier, and I try to give my organic opinion on things without letting my mind be clouded. And I think that when it comes to certain situations, depending on how you get the information, can change how you look at the situation in its entirety. So the way that this was presented to me was Josh Giddey had relationships with somebody who was 16. And I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. Because I know that he's 21 years old. And the very first thing I see after that is people comparing him to Karl Malone. And I go, there are levels to this. Like Karl Malone was 1 year younger than him, but also was someone who's 13 as opposed to 16. You know, like and I also, without going further into detail, because I don't know many details, I did see the screenshot that she took, and it said, I just Josh Giddey.
Right.
Which means, okay, this feels like you were trying to bait him to begin with. I'm not defending anybody who is taking advantage of anybody as a minor. I think that we need to understand that, because just because you can have context and say innocent until proven guilty or anything like, doesn't mean that you're defending somebody else. But there's also been rumors that she lied about her age. I don't know what's truer. I have no idea what's true or not. I really don't. But on its face, if you're 21, 16, no, bad. If you lied to get a bag, still bad. Because we've seen athletes who get this money that usually we see when they do these types of things, most of the time the reports are true. Sometimes they're false though. And I'm just not willing to say 100% that I know exactly what's going on. But given the facts I have, which is she said that she slept with him, made it look like it was like this grandiose thing. Nobody's talked about it. I also like it's a delicate situation, and I'm trying to give everybody and everything their own space and let it kind of play out. What are your thoughts currently? Because it's obviously a very delicate subject, just because it is having relations with a minor.
I think
crazy.
I think it comes down to this. I think regardless of the age of relation that you're having when you're a professional sports ball player, sports ball. So just to encompass everything, I think it's important to cover your own butt. And we saw that with Kobe. We saw that with a couple of other different cases, which didn't involve minors or what have you, where you need to make sure your research is done. You need NDAs, whatever, and you need to make smart decisions, because there's people out there to get bags. So, as far as how he plays for the Thunder, right?
Giddey, yeah, he plays. Yeah, he plays for OKC.
As far as OKC and how they're handling it, I think that having him still be at practice and all that jazz, I think PR wise, it's not a smart decision until things are at least semi cleared up, or at least a little bit more information is given.
Because does that make you think that maybe because we don't know what's actually going on.
Mm.
So do you think that maybe they know that, dude, we think that she trapped you? Because again, we don't know. But you're right. From a PR standpoint, generally speaking, when these types of things happen, it is you're not playing, you're not practicing. Like, you need to be away from this circumstance as much as you can be. And they're not doing it.
Yeah,
So
go away from the court, go handle your business, figure it out so that you're not bringing that into the circumstances on the court.
right,
And then if it's cleared up, it's cleared up, no harm, no foul, and we'll get it, it's taken care of. But because he was interviewed and said pretty much more or less like, I have no comment at this time. I'm
well,
not
that's a
going to
legal
talk
thing.
about it.
It's a legal team doing their job.
Well, that was just Giddey saying that. But when
Right.
he
But
was
I
asked
mean,
about it,
the people who were telling him to say that is legal team. They're telling him, don't talk.
and that's a smart thing to do. But again, at the same, it's obviously that if that circumstance is true, it's not okay. You're a professional uh, athlete. You can go into pretty much any bar or any adult circumstance and say, "Hey, I'd like to get some," and you'll get some. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have money, you're at a certain status level. That certain opportunities are available to you that are not available to the regular Joe like myself walking into a bar.
Right.
So if you're even in a circumstance where questions like this arise, then you're not doing your part as somebody at status level to protect yourself. So I hope it comes out that it's incorrect, or there was some kind of falsified, she lied about her age or whatever. But at the same circumstance, I hope the gentleman learns from this circumstance, whatever did happen, and is able to realize that he needs to, again, cover his bottom a little bit better, and make better decisions in life outside of the court.
Well, the thing that I've always, the way that I look at things is, if this is true in its entirety, and he just was, hey, I'm looking for you, then pedophile. I don't like using the word pedophile when it comes to that, because again, so, and now with the pause, it sounds even worse. But what I'm
No, but
doing,
the age gap is a lot smaller, so I understand what you're saying.
one, it's smaller, but it's also, dude, if you knew, that's ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't. I don't think I should have to tell people you're 21, she's 16, regardless of. And I know that Taylor said, there's different rules overseas, but we can make the exact same thing for Brittany Griner. Like, the rules here are different than they are over there, but you got to adhere to the rules that are there. And I still think that what she went through was absurd and didn't need to happen either. So it comes back to, there are levels to all of this. But if he knew and she knew, dog, you
made a poor decision.
You not just a poor decision, like you broke the law, dog. That's different. If she lied to you, and this is the only part that really gives me, again, without doing a whole lot of research on this, and look, the more news that comes out, the more facts that I have, I might sway this decision. But when I see the fact that she took a Snapchat or whatever the hell it was and said, I just Josh Giddey, to me, that looks like you tried to bait him into either A, extortion for money and settle, or that alone makes me feel like there's more to this story than just that. It could be that he knew. And if he did, dude, you f***ed up. And you were wrong from the get-go.
You might have just ruined your entire career because of that decision.
That's entirely true. That exactly. But if she lied to you, there's not enough stuff to really draw a conclusion. I'm just like, from my perspective as somebody who does this on a day-to-day basis, well, not as much anymore, but I can only make my assumption based on the information that's given to me. But when I have so many different perspectives and views and lies, I don't know what's true. So at this point in time, it looks like you made a huge mistake. And it also looks like you might be not a great person. I don't know which one it is right now. That's just me, though.
Yeah. Well, and Taylor brings up a good point. The punter from San Diego State,
Matt Ariza.
that turned out to be absolute baloney. And I don't even know if he's playing on a team just because his name
he's
is
not. No, the Bills cut him but see, that's the thing. The Bills cut him the moment that it happened,
which is good PR. It's as far as go handle it. We're not sure because of the information that's involved, so we can't be attached to this, and that's why it's a little daunting that OKC hasn't. Hey, you need to step away for a little bit.
Well, this okay, to put it back in to reel this back into the sports perspective is how important are you? Matt Ariza is a punter. He got cut the moment that accusation came forward because he's a punter. I'm not saying that Josh Allen has done this, but if it was Josh Allen, that would not be. He would go on the commissioner's exempt list.
Right.
That's exactly how this would go down. Josh Giddey is important to the OKC Thunder. That might be another reason too. I don't know, but when I'm looking at this at face value, and Tyler says they were dating, it was his girl. I don't know how much the relationship was like formidable, if you will. Was it a real relationship? Was it a one-night stand? The photo that I saw, that dude, he looked faded as hell. I've only seen one photo. I haven't seen the other videos or photos, but the one I did see, that dog looked faded. So I don't know. It's kind of just it's a weird dynamic. It's a weird thing to talk about because I have 3 sisters. I'm married. I never want to see any woman get taken advantage of, but I do know that there are certain women out there who will take advantage of people because when they have that kind of money, I just don't know enough yet to say one way or the other. It felt weird when I saw people calling him a pedophile. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like that seems like it's, again, if everything is true and if everything is what it is, all right, man, we might have to have like a more serious talk. But Karl Malone is that to me that's a big
it's a drastic difference. Yeah. 100%. I agree with that. It's until the entirety of the facts come out to be bipartisan and be impartial as far as going one way or the other, knowing what's right and what's wrong while looking at it from the outside perspective until all answers are given. That's the right way to go about it. And there's a right and a wrong. If you broke the law, you broke the law. You're going to have to face consequences. If you didn't, and she lied about something, then she's going to have to face consequences. And
it's always, that's the thing. It's always really uncomfortable to talk about, and most people don't want to. And that's why these types of things, I largely steer clear of them. But for whatever reason, I kind of wanted to get on this one. I don't know, man. It's seeing from the perspective of people saying, like going from the worst type of person, which is a pedophile, to somebody who got duped. That's such a huge space. Like that's a huge gap of the indifferences of certain wrongs. Pedophile and made a mistake, or the girl lied to you. Like those are two completely different things. So I think the more that we learn, we'll be able to kind of better have an understanding of, whoa, this guy was a predator. And if that's the case, get him out of here.
Well, that's why it's good to talk about conversations that make people uncomfortable, because the more we talk about it, the more we can better define those areas of right and wrong, and people can be held accountable to a better standard. So Hey man, like I said, as soon as you told me this is something you wanted to touch on today, it was like, well, hey, that makes sense to me, man. Let me go do a little bit more research real quick, so I don't have, I'm not completely in the dark. But yeah, man, I mean, again, this is why our this day and age, people don't like to have tough conversations about really a whole bunch of different topics, but tough conversations are what broaden the thought process, or make you reconsider your right and wrong, and better establish a right and wrong in society. So it's good to have conversations like this, man.
Yeah, you can't go forward if you're always looking in the past. Like you have to be able to. You can't change everybody's mind. There are certain people who are going to land on one side of the coin or the other, and you can't change their minds. And I'm not here to change anybody's minds. I've always told people I'm never going to ask you what to think. I'm just asking that you do.
Just
Like
think
that's
about why you think that way. Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
That is all that I'm looking for in this. So, did you have anything else you wanted to touch on before we go ahead and hang it up for the night?
No, man, it's been great tonight, brother. This has been a good show. Good show.
Man, well, I mean, you're on the show, man. It's always going to be good. You don't even try. You just trying to go ahead and make me blush. Then I see you. So for all of you guys that were able to hang it up with this or to chop it up with us today, that was Chris Fisher of the Church of Hot Sauce. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, smash those 5-star reviews on my page, but also follow him. We will put a link in the comment section so that you guys can go ahead and follow his hot sauce page as well. Chris Fisher of the LA Journal, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to have you on, man. You guys know the drill. Smash those 5-star reviews. Stay up. Stay blessed. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care, my guy.
Later, brother.
All right, later, my man.